"Marcus, get these boxes to storage before the meeting starts." The voice cut through the warehouse like a whip. Marcus Thompson didn't flinch. He was used to it. 23 years of being invisible teaches you not to react. He bent down, his 52-year-old knees protesting, and lifted the heavy box. His back screamed. The same back that had been injured in the Gulf War 30 years ago. The same back that nobody at Pembroke Industries knew about because nobody had ever asked. Marcus was just the maintenance guy, the janitor, the man who showed up at 6 a.m. and left at 6 p.m., moving through the gleaming corporate halls like a ghost. People looked through him, past him, never at him. Young executives in $1,000 suits rushed by without a word. Receptionists scrolled through their phones when he mopped near their desks. Even the security guards, who at least nodded to everyone else, barely acknowledged his existence. It was as if Marcus had been erased from the world while still being forced to live in it. He carried the boxes down the long corridor toward the storage room, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Through the glass walls of conference room, he could see them gathering. The executives, the managers, the people who mattered. They were preparing for the quarterly meeting with Jonathan Pembroke himself, the CEO, the legend, the man who'd built this tech empire from nothing. Marcus had seen Mr. Pembroke maybe 3 times in 23 years, always from a distance, always surrounded by people who actually existed in his world. Marcus reached the storage room and set the boxes down carefully. His hands were shaking, not from the weight, from something else, from the envelope burning in his jacket pocket, the letter he typed last night at his kitchen table while his wife slept upstairs, his resignation letter, after 23 years of loyalty, of showing up every single day, of fixing what was broken and cleaning what was dirty, of being the foundation nobody noticed he was done. He was going to hand it in today, right after the meeting ended. He'd slip it under the HR director's door and walk out. No goodbye party, no farewell speech, just disappear the same way he'd existed, invisible to the end. The conference room was filling up fast. Marcus watched from the hallway as he pushed his cleaning cart past, pretending to check the water cooler nearby. He shouldn't care. He'd decided to leave, but something made him pause. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was saying goodbye to a place that had never said hello. Through the glass, he could see Robert Chen, the VP of Operations, adjusting his tie nervously. Sarah Martinez, the CFO, shuffling papers. Derek Williams, the man who'd barked at Marcus 5 minutes ago, laughing too loud at someone's joke. And then Jonathan Pembroke entered. Even from outside, Marcus could feel the shift in energy. Pembroke was 71, but moved like a man 20 years younger. Silver hair, sharp eyes, a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. He'd started this company in 1987 with 3 employees. Now Pembroke Industries employed over 5,000 people across 12 countries. The meeting began. Marcus knew he should move on, get back to work, but something kept him there, lingering near the water cooler, wiping down surfaces that didn't need wiping. Inside, Pembroke was talking about quarterly earnings, about expansion plans, about company values. His voice, though muffled through the glass, carried weight, authority. Then, without warning, Pembroke stopped mid-sentence. He was looking at something on his tablet, frowning. The room went silent. Sarah leaned forward. "Sir, is everything all right?" Pembroke looked up, his expression unreadable. "Who here knows Marcus Thompson?" The room went still. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. His name. The CEO had just said his name. Derek Williams cleared his throat. You mean the maintenance guy? The maintenance man?" Pembroke corrected sharply. "Yes, Marcus Thompson. How many of you have spoken to him? Actually spoken to him?" Confused glances exchanged around the table. Sarah shook her head slightly. Robert looked at his shoes. Nobody answered. Marcus's heart was hammering in his chest. What was happening? Why was Pembroke asking about him? Pembroke set his tablet down with deliberate care. The kind of care that meant he was choosing his next words carefully, choosing whether to reveal something that would change everything. "Let me tell you about Marcus Thompson," Pembroke said quietly. The room leaned in. Outside, Marcus wanted to run, wanted to disappear, but his legs wouldn't move. 23 years ago. Pembroke continued. This company was 6 months from bankruptcy. We'd lost our biggest client. Our investors were pulling out. I was making payroll from my personal savings. I came into the office one night late, maybe trying to figure out how to tell 300 employees they wouldn't have jobs by Christmas. He paused, his eyes distant, remembering. I was sitting in my office, head in my hands, when I heard someone in the hallway. I thought it was security. But when I looked out, I saw a young man mopping the floors. He was humming, actually humming while he worked. I remember thinking, how can he be happy? Doesn't he know this company is dying? Sarah was completely still. Robert had stopped fidgeting. Derek's face had gone pale. So I stepped out, Pembroke said, and I asked him. I said, how can you hum while Rome burns? And you know what he told me? The room was silent. He said, sir, I don't know much about business, but I know that if this floor is clean when people come in tomorrow morning, that's one less thing for them to worry about. That's one small thing I can control. So I'm going to control it the best I can. Pembroke's voice had gone soft, almost reverent. That night, Marcus Thompson taught me something I'd forgotten. That success isn't just about the big decisions. It's about showing up. It's about doing your job with dignity, no matter what's happening around you. It's about being the foundation that holds everything else up. He looked around the table at his executives. I went back to my office after talking to him. I looked at our numbers differently. I focused on what I could control, and I saved this company. But I never forgot that conversation. I never forgot Marcus Thompson. Outside, Marcus's eyes were burning. He pressed his hand against the wall to steady himself. Pembroke remembered. After all these years, Pembroke remembered. But Pembroke wasn't finished. He tapped his tablet, and suddenly the large screen at the front of the conference room lit up. It showed a spreadsheet. Numbers. Data. Years of data. Do you know, Pembroke said, his voice carrying a sharp edge now, that Marcus Thompson hasn't missed a single day of work in 23 years. Not one. Not for sickness. Not for vacation. Not for anything. The executives stared at the screen, the perfect attendance record glowing in front of them like an accusation. Do you know, Pembroke continued, his voice rising slightly, that 3 years ago, Marcus noticed a gas leak in Building C at 5:30 in the morning. He shut off the main valve himself and called emergency services. The fire department said if that leak had gone unnoticed for another hour, when employees started arriving, we could have had an explosion that would have killed dozens of people. Sarah's hand went to her mouth. Robert looked sick. Derek had gone completely white. Did any of you know that? Pembroke demanded. Did any of you ever bother to learn what this man does every single day to keep you safe? To keep this building running? To keep your offices clean and your equipment maintained? Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Last month, Pembroke said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, Marcus submitted a requisition for new cleaning equipment. The old machines are breaking down constantly. Do you know what happened to that requisition? He looked directly at Derek. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. It was denied, Pembroke said. By you, Derek. You wrote, and I'm reading directly from your response. Maintenance equipment is low priority. Budget denied. Derek's face was now sheet white. Sir, I didn't. We had other expenses that. Stop, Pembroke said quietly. But that one word carried the weight of a grenade. Marcus Thompson makes $32,000 a year. Some of you make that in a month. He's been working with broken equipment for a year because you decided his job wasn't priority enough. Pembroke stood up. He moved to the window, looking out at the building he'd built. This morning, he said, I received an email from Marcus Thompson. It was CC'd to me by accident. He was sending it to a friend, asking for advice. In that email, Marcus said he was planning to resign today, after 23 years, because he feels invisible, because he feels like his work doesn't matter. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He'd sent that email to his friend James at 6 a.m., asking for advice on whether resigning was the right choice. He hadn't realized he'd accidentally CC'd the CEO's office in his exhaustion. Pembroke turned back to face his leadership team. His expression was something none of them had ever seen before. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment. "Let me be very clear," he said, his voice cutting through the room like steel. "Marcus Thompson is not resigning. But some of you might be if you don't understand what I'm about to say." He placed both hands on the conference table and leaned forward. "This company's values aren't on our website or in our annual report. They're in how we treat the people who keep this place running. The people you don't see. The people you walk past every single day without acknowledgement." He looked at each executive individually. "Sarah, you've passed Marcus in the hallway 300 times this year. Have you ever said good morning?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. "Robert, Marcus fixed your office thermostat 5 times last winter when it was freezing. Did you ever thank him?" Robert stared at the table. "No, sir." "Derek, you literally yelled at Marcus an hour ago about moving boxes. Did you say please? Did you acknowledge he's a human being with a name?" Derek couldn't meet Pembroke's eyes. "No, sir." The room was drowning in shame. Outside, Marcus wiped his eyes. He should leave, should walk away, but he couldn't move. Pembroke straightened up. "Here's what's going to happen. In 5 minutes, I'm going to invite Marcus Thompson into this room, and every single one of you is going to apologize. Not because I'm ordering you to, but because it's the right thing to do, because he deserves it, because he's given this company 23 years of his life, and the least you can do is see him." He paused. "And then we're going to have a conversation about what kind of company we really are, whether we're the kind of place where success makes us forget basic human decency, or whether we're going to be better." Someone knocked on the conference room door. It was Janet from HR, looking confused. "Mr. Pembroke, you asked me to find Marcus Thompson." Pembroke nodded. "Is he here?" Janet looked around, then spotted Marcus standing frozen near the water cooler in the hallway. "He's right there, sir." Every head in the conference room turned. Through the glass walls, they saw him. Really saw him. For the first time in years. Marcus in his gray uniform, his weathered face, his hands that had fixed 1,000 things they'd broken, his presence that had been there every single day. Invisible and essential, like oxygen. Pembroke opened the conference room door himself. "Marcus," he said gently, "would you please come in?" Marcus couldn't breathe. His legs felt like lead. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. But Pembroke was waiting, patient, kind. Marcus forced himself to move. One step, then another. He walked through that door into a room he'd cleaned 1,000 times, but never entered as anything other than the help. Every eye was on him. Sarah Martinez was crying. Robert Chen looked shattered. Derek Williams looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Marcus stood there, uncertain, his hands clasped in front of him like a schoolboy called to the principal's office. "Please, sit," Pembroke said, gesturing to an empty chair, the head of the table. Marcus looked at the chair like it might explode. "Sir, I can't. That's today. It's yours," Pembroke said firmly. Marcus sat. The leather chair was the most comfortable thing he'd ever felt. He could feel everyone staring at him, could feel the weight of their attention so different from being invisible. Pembroke remained standing. "Marcus, I owe you an apology," he said. "I had one conversation with you 23 years ago that changed my life, that saved this company, and then I failed you. I got so caught up in the next deal, the next expansion, the next success, that I forgot to ensure the people around me treated you with the respect you deserve." Marcus's throat was so tight he couldn't speak. "You've been the foundation of this company," Pembroke continued, "and I let you become invisible. That ends today." He looked around the room. "Sarah, would you like to say something?" Sarah stood on shaking legs. She walked around the table and stood in front of Marcus. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice breaking, "I've walked past you for 6 years. 6 years, and I never once stopped to say thank you. I never asked your name. I never acknowledged that you exist. I'm so deeply sorry." A tear rolled down her cheek. "You keep this building running. You keep us safe. And I've been so absorbed in spreadsheets and budgets that I forgot there are human beings behind every job title. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Robert was next, then Jennifer from marketing, then Tom from sales. One by one, executives who'd ignored him for years stood up and apologized. Some cried. Some could barely get the words out. All of them meant it. Finally, it was Derek's turn. He stood slowly, his face pale, his hands trembling. He walked over to Marcus and stood there for a long moment, struggling to find words. "Mr. Thompson," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I yelled at you today. I've yelled at you before. I treated you like you were nothing." He swallowed hard. "But you're not nothing. You're everything I'm not. You show up. You do your job with dignity. You don't complain. You don't cut corners. His voice broke. "You're a better man than I am. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Derek extended his hand. Marcus looked at it. This hand that belonged to the man who denied his equipment request, who'd barked orders at him, who'd never once said please or thank you. Marcus could leave it hanging there, could refuse, could make Derek feel a fraction of the invisible pain Marcus had felt for years. But that wasn't who Marcus was. He took Derek's hand and shook it firmly. "It's okay," Marcus said quietly. His first words since entering the room. "We all get caught up in our own world sometimes." The grace in those words broke something in Derek. He covered his face with his hands and wept. Pembroke let the moment breathe, let the weight of it settle on everyone in the room. Then he spoke. "Marcus, I asked you here to tell you something. Your resignation is rejected. Not because I'm your boss and I'm ordering you to stay, but because I'm asking you, as someone who respects you deeply, to give us a chance to do better." He paused. "I'm also promoting you. Effective immediately, you're the new Director of Facilities and Safety. Salary of $85,000 to start, with full benefits, retirement matching, and stock options." Marcus's eyes went wide. "Sir, I'm just, you're the man who's been running facilities and safety for 23 years without the title or the pay." Pembroke interrupted. "You're the man who saved lives by catching that gas leak. You're the man who shows up every single day and does what needs to be done with dignity and pride. That's not just anything. That's leadership." Pembroke sat down beside Marcus. "You deserve this. You've always deserved this. I just failed to see it until today. Don't let my failure define your worth." Marcus sat in that conference room for another hour, not as the invisible janitor, as a colleague, as a leader, as someone who mattered. They asked him questions about the building, about safety concerns, about equipment needs, about his ideas for improvement. And Marcus, who'd spent 23 years being silent and invisible, spoke. He talked about the outdated HVAC system in Building B, about the lighting upgrades needed in the parking garage for employee safety, about the outdated cleaning chemicals that were harsh and ineffective when eco-friendly options existed. He talked, and they listened, really listened. When the meeting finally ended, people didn't rush out. They came up to Marcus, shook his hand, introduced themselves like they were meeting him for the first time, because in a way, they were. Sarah gave him her card and asked if they could have coffee to discuss budget allocations for his department. Robert asked if Marcus would join the safety committee. Jennifer asked if he'd be willing to speak at the next company-wide meeting about workplace dignity. Derek stayed behind after everyone left. Just him, Marcus, and Pembroke. "Mr. Thompson," Derek said, "I know I apologize already, but I want you to know, I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. You taught me something today that my MBA never did." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "That dignity isn't about what you earn or what title you have. It's about how you show up, how you treat people, how you do your job when nobody's watching. You have more dignity in your little finger than I have in my whole body." Derek extended his hand again. "Thank you for the lesson." Marcus shook his hand. Pembroke watched them both with something that looked like hope. When Derek left, it was just Pembroke and Marcus. "You know," Pembroke said quietly, 23 years ago, you told me to focus on what I could control. You saved my company. Today, You saved something more important. You saved the soul of this place. You reminded us what we're supposed to be. Marcus smiled. A real smile. I was going to quit today. Sir, I know. And you would have been right too? But I'm asking you to stay. Not for me, for them. For the culture we're going to build. For every person in this company who's ever felt invisible. Marcus thought about his wife, about the call he'd make to her tonight, telling her everything, about the life they could finally build with a real salary, about the respect he'd just been given, about being seen. Okay, Marcus said, I'll stay. 3 months later, Marcus Thompson stood at the front of a packed auditorium. Every employee of Pembroke Industries was there. Pembroke had introduced him simply. This is Marcus Thompson. He's the foundation this company is built on, and today, he's going to tell you his story. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, faces that now smiled at him in the hallways, that said good morning, that knew his name. He took a breath and began. 23 years ago, I started working here thinking I was just a janitor, just the help, just invisible. But I learned something. There's no such thing as just when it comes to showing up and doing your job with dignity. Whether you're cleaning floors or running a company, how you show up matters. Who you are matters. And you are never, ever invisible even when people fail to see you. He paused. I almost left, almost walked away. But then someone said my name, and everything changed. Not because I changed, but because I was finally seen. Marcus looked at Pembroke, sitting in the front row. We all want to be seen. We all want our work to matter. So, today, I'm asking you to look around. See the person next to you. See the people who keep this place running. See the people you walk past. And remember, we're all the foundation. Every single one of us. And foundations only work when every piece is valued. The auditorium erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Marcus Thompson, who'd been invisible for 23 years, was finally, completely seen. Later that night, Marcus drove home in his old truck. His wife was waiting on the porch. She took one look at his face and knew. You didn't quit, she said. No, Marcus said, pulling her into his arms. I got promoted. I got seen. I got my dignity back. She held him tight. You never lost it, baby. They just finally noticed what was always there, and standing in the driveway of their small home. Marcus realized she was right. His worth had never changed. His dignity had always been there. In every floor he mopped, every leak he fixed, every day he showed up. He'd been the foundation all along. They just finally built something worthy on top of it. We spend our lives wanting to be seen, but true dignity isn't given by others. It lives in how we show up when no one's watching. And sometimes, the invisible people holding everything together are the only ones who truly understand what strength means. The foundation doesn't need recognition to be essential, but recognition reminds us all to honor the foundations in our lives.